Today's verses are chapters 15 and 16 in Genesis, continuing the story of Abram. There are 3 ideas I want to unpack in the end, so let's begin. 15. After all these things, this word of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision. Don't be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward will be grand. Abram said, Yahweh, Master, what use are your gifts as long as I'm childless and Eleazar of Damascus is going to inherit everything? Abram continued, See, you've given me no children, and now a mere house servant is going to get it all? Then Yahweh's message came, Don't worry, he won't be your heir. A son from your body will be your heir. Then he took him outside and said, Look at the sky. Count the stars. Can you do it? Count your descendants, Abram. You're going to have a big family, Abram. And he believed Yahweh. God declared him set right with God. Yahweh continued, I'm the same Yahweh who brought you from Ur of the Chaldees and gave you this land to own. Abram said, Master Yahweh, how am I to know this, that it will all be mine? Yahweh said, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, and a dove and a young pigeon. He brought all these animals to him, split them down the middle, and laid the halves opposite each other. But he didn't split the birds. Vultures swooped down on the carcasses, but Abram scared them off. As the sun went down, a deep sleep overcame Abram, and then a sense of dread, dark and heavy. Yahweh said to Abram, Know this, your descendants will live as outsiders in a land not theirs. They'll be enslaved and beaten down for 400 years, and then I'll punish their slave masters. Your offspring will march out of there loaded with plunder, but not you. You'll have a long and full life, and die a good and peaceful death. Not until the 4th generation will your descendants return there. Sin is still a thriving business among the Amorites. When the sun was down and it was dark, a smoking fire pit and a flaming torch moved between the split carcasses. That's when Yahweh made a covenant with Abram. I'm giving this land to your children, from the Nile River in Egypt to the river Euphrates in Assyria, the country of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Raham, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. 16. Sarai, Abram's wife, hadn't yet produced a child. She had an Egyptian maid named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, Yahweh has not seen fit to let me have a child. Sleep with my maid, maybe I can get a family from her. Abram agreed to do what Sarai said. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took her Egyptian maid, Hagar, and gave her to her husband Abram as a wife. Abram had been living 10 years in Canaan when this took place. He slept with Hagar and she got pregnant. When Hagar learned she was pregnant, she looked down on her mistress. Sarai told Abram, If this is all your fault, I'm suffering this abuse. I put my maid in bed with you, and the minute she knows she's pregnant, she treats me like I'm nothing. May Yahweh decide which of us is right. You decide, said Abram. Your maid is your business. Sarai was abusive to Hagar, and Hagar ran away. The angel of Yahweh found her beside a spring in the desert. It was a spring on the road to Shur. He said, Hagar, maid of Sarai, what are you doing here? She said, I'm running away from Sarai, my mistress. The angel of Yahweh said, Go back to your mistress. Put up with her abuse. He continued, I'm going to give you a big family. Children past counting. From this pregnancy you will get a son. Name him Ishmael. For Yahweh heard you. Yahweh answered you. He'll be a bucking bronco of a man, a real fighter, fighting and being fought, always stirring up trouble, always at odds with his family. She answered Yahweh by name, praying to the God who spoke to her. You're the God who sees me. Yes, he saw me. Whoops, sorry. Yes, he saw me, and then I saw him. That's how the desert spring got named. Yahweh alive sees me, spring, or God alive sees me, spring. The spring is still there, between Kadesh and Beret. Hagar gave Abram a son. Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave him his son Ishmael. The three ideas that I wanted to unpack are seriousness, selfishness, and mercy. The seriousness comes back in chapter 15 when the sense of darkness and everything else overwhelms Abram. So I don't necessarily think it's the kind of dark that we understand of terror. I think it's an understanding that God is the one who creates all things. So when he makes a promise that is that across space and time and that heavy weighted, it means something. It's like the most real event one is going to experience. I'm reminded of a story about a family friend who, the first time they had seen the Rocky Mountains, because they were from Florida, they were terrified of them and thought the mountains would fall on top of them. And it makes me think, in a much, much larger scale, that kind of same feeling. The most serious event that one may ever understand in their life is an encounter with God, because everything else is hevel and disappears in time. The other idea I wanted to go back to was selfishness. And it's right through the beginning of chapter 16. Aside from the fact that the language in the verses is the same language used in the garden and used when talking about the fall of man. The took, gave, and, took the apple, gave to him. It's the I want to do it my way tendency. And, the selfishness of Abraham to not want to get involved between the two of them fighting, when if Hagar was given to him by Sarai as a wife, he should have been protecting her as one. And when he dropped the ball, God picked it back up and promised her a family too. And that leads right into the mercy. And I feel horrible that the transition verse was right on the paper flip. Sorry for that. I'm still upgrading the tech, or trying to. God provides. It's this understanding that God sees me. Hagar rejoiced because God saw her. It strikes back to we love because we were loved first. Christ's love in us teaches us how to love. And it makes me think of so many other sections of the Bible where it's talking about it's not your religion, it's not your this or that, it's your heart. That when God changes that through relationship, when he sees us and we see him, the relationship becomes stronger, richer. It forms. We can put up with things that the world throws at us because we know we serve the one who keeps the promises. So the verses, yes, there is the huge drop of the ball on both Hagar, or not on Hagar, sorry, on Sarai and Abram's end. Because Sarai tried to force it, did the same kind of thing that Eve did rather than trusting, and Abraham went right along with it rather than trusting. And it reflects kind of how we tend to behave all the way through history. We can do the right thing, but we don't. We want to do the right thing, but we generally won't. We do what we don't want to, we do what we don't mean to, and we end up confused. And yes, I am borrowing the song Better Questions from Todd Agnew, because it's a very strong and very poignant verse. We're broken people. We need to be set right by God. When we do it our own way, we break more things. If Abram had trusted, if Sarai had trusted, Hagar never would have been in that situation. And God used it anyway. He works all things to his glory for those who trust in him. And that is exactly what we are going to see later as we continue through Genesis. So, with 16, yeah, there are going to be some sermons out there on patience. I don't really want to go into the patience because, well, praying for patience, God isn't going to magically give you patience. He's going to give you opportunities to be patient. I want to talk about the fact that God was merciful. The fact that in the face of human evil, because I don't care what era you're in, rape is, and there is no consent implied, for what it's worth, that's wrong no matter where you are. So, treating each other with respect, And when we fail to do so, God still loves us. We just have to trust Him to set it right. We have to trust that Jesus died for our sins. We have to trust Him. We have to dig into relationship. Because that relationship changes the heart. We do neither the making nor the saving. It's all up to Him, to borrow from Paul. We trust Him to do what He has proven Himself worthy to do. And that is the relationship that dwells and forms. And that is what I will always continue to preach. If you don't believe me, pick up the word. Cry out to Jesus, Yeshua, Messiah, and find out. Because He's there. He'll talk. We need to listen. And I think this is a prime example that it's not just about listening. It's about being glad for His way rather than our way. This is Jeremiah 29:11 says, His ways are not our ways, His thoughts are not our thoughts. And I know that we think it's 10, but the entire idea, He knows what He has planned for us. We don't. So trust Him to do what He's going to do and enjoy the life given. Because in all things there is beauty. Because in all things He's in the middle. See you guys tomorrow for 17 and 18. God bless.